Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth, where we proclaim the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. Happy Easter, Alleluia. Since our last major audience survey that we did on The Simple Truth, late 2022, we've been prayerfully discerning the right way forward on this Monday show, realizing that there was a desire from some of you to broaden the theme from Catholic Family Men Monday, and so we tried a few different formats. Then last week, we followed up with a Testimony Tuesday show with my wife Becky from the week earlier by having her back as a guest last Monday on the topic of caring for our bodies. And we had a great response, and we were only just barely scratching the surface on the topic. So we're going to go forward with a new Monday theme and see how this goes with my wife, Becky, as our co-host here on Mondays. I think you're going to like this, that it fills a gap. I think you're going to find that it's helpful. It's a gap that is often not thought about or talked about, which is a big problem because it is a Catholic understanding of reality that can best shed light on all of this. And so the theme is Wholeness and Healing Monday, with the tagline, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, body, and soul. And the way I look at this is there are three pillars of this framework. So there's a correct, accurate vision of health, of body and soul. We ought to know what this vision is, what we are made for in terms of health of body and soul. Again, the Catholic understanding of that is going to give us the right anthropology to understand what it means to be human, what is our purpose, all the things that will help us to understand a real picture of true health. And at the same time, though, another pillar here is that there are attacks against us constantly, attacks against our health of body and of soul. So there's a need for healing and strengthening because of what we're being faced with, the afflictions that we do take on, and just the assaults that are coming at us. We need to be fortified for those things, and we need to be healed of those things, as we certainly are going to be wounded, and it's going to take a toll on us as we go. Just think of the sacrament of confession when it comes to the soul, how important that is for healing. And so the third pillar then is just faithfulness, right? To understand the eternal perspective of things, right? We are on an earthly pilgrimage to heaven, right? Our bodies and our souls united. This is who we are. Both are vital. So we want to avoid heresies, obviously. So on one side, you've got a certain Gnosticism, a certain one strain of which you could read about in St. Augustine's Confessions. He came out of it, Manichaeism. So this Gnosticism that would say the soul is good, the body is bad, and therefore it leads to all kinds of errors because it looks at the body as something just to really to sort of try to free yourself from. That's not the right way to look at it. That's not the reality here. And on the other end, it's also not to idolize the body or worship the body or fall into some sort of materialism that denigrates the soul or acts like there isn't even a soul, some form of atheism, right? That's not what we're going for. So we want faithfulness. We want to understand what health really is, understand that those who are often telling us about what a vision of health is, are they really to be trusted, right? What is their motive? What is their profit motive? What is their power motive? And so we think this forum here is very important to help us to have a right vision of it, help us to see the assaults, help us to double down in our striving for faithfulness, to see that path and to take that path as we go forward for the sake of our bodies and souls and for those who are entrusted to our care. So that's the framework for the Monday show going forward. We're not claiming that we are experts. My lovely wife Becky and I, we're not claiming that, but we are wanting to provide a forum. This is something that obviously we are both passionate about and have studied some and gone into the research, and we want to share what we have learned through experience and through study, but not claiming to be experts here. We want to open up a forum. There's many of you listening, I'm sure, that have things to add that we are not aware of. And so we want you to do that. We want to build that audience participation into this Monday show. So send out a little survey to those who are on our Simple Truth, the Simple Truth email list. You can get on it if you go to the stationofthecross.com, go to the Simple Truth and sign up for the email list there. We'll send you out a little survey during the day on Monday to let you know what the topic is and have you weigh in if you want to weigh in that way. But also we're going to put the phone number out in just a little bit. That's our preferred way. We'd love to have you weigh in by calling in, sharing your thoughts, asking any questions you might have, and have something of a good, fruitful forum on these topics. So that's the plan. So we hope you like it. Hope it resonates with you. We're going to get into all kinds of specific, helpful, practical topics as we go forward. But also, we still want to have the flexibility to perhaps do some special reports from time to time on a given Monday, like if there's some pressing topic outside of this framework that we want to bring to you. So we'll strive to let God lead and have His way as we always do. But for today, our first official Wholeness and Healing Monday with co-host Becky Havens, my lovely wife. She's a Catholic wife and mother. She also has a passion and calling to educate people about the importance of caring for our bodies that the Lord has blessed us with by living a healthy lifestyle. Author of Toxin Free in 12 Months, a 12-month guide to help you transition over to a toxin-free lifestyle. She also wrote a boycott list of over 300 pro-abortion companies. You can get them both for free at her website, safehavensmama.com. All right, Becky, let's get you in here. How are you doing today? And what are some introductory thoughts you might have for us as you sort of reflect on why are we doing this? What's the value of it? How do you see it?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I think you're right. I think what you said before is, we're not looking to idolize the body, worship the body, but as Catholics, we sometimes forget about our bodies in general, and we kind of push health to the side, and then we're lacking in these things, and it's not bringing forward, a complete balance of virtue. And I know that was the case for me, and as I was striving to, grow in my faith, my physical health was suffering. And if it was in my control, I knew that I have to do something about it. Now, God can send us sufferings in many different ways, and that might be out of our control. But as stewards of our body, I think that we really need to pay attention to that area of our life and really go a little bit deeper and talk about it a little more. I don't think that you hear much at all about this in the Catholic realm. I think you hear a lot of secular things, and it falls into the New Age category. And so people are kind of like, nervous to even go down that road. And I think just having a space for that, to talk about, knowing that you don't have to be New Age or worship your body to get healthy. There's ways that God wants you to do that through Him. So I think it's great. I'm excited.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for saying yes to doing it. And we're going to dive into our topic for today, which is the discipline of sleep, the importance of sleep, the need for a discipline surrounding it. And as we get into that, the reason that we're picking this one to start off with today, well, it's a good fundamental topic to get into things that affects so much regarding our bodies and our souls and our lives. But also it is the topic that you have for the month of April in your book, The Toxin Free in 12 Months, a 12-month guide to help you transition over to a toxin-free lifestyle. So that happens to be the topic for April. So figure let's dive into that. Again, people can get that free book over at safehavensmama.com for a fuller picture on some of these things we may discuss. But we're also going to go outside of the limitations of what was written there as well and get into any aspect of this that is interesting to you out there today. So we want you to call in if you have any comments or questions on this, 1-877-511-5483. Any questions about sleep, any comments about sleep? What have you experienced by way of maybe a bedtime routine that has worked really well for you? So much of what is valuable we can find by trial and error and learning from experience. What have you experienced as a great method to get you to sleep and to get you to have a good night's sleep? Is there a discipline? Is there a way that you have learned? 1-877-511-5483. So Becky, as we dive into sleep, what is so important about sleep? I think we all have some sense that sleep is important, but maybe we don't have it maybe up as high a priority oftentimes as maybe it should be. It's maybe one of the first things we're willing to sacrifice when lives get full and active. But what is your introductory thoughts here on sleep?
Right. So we spend about 1/3 of our life sleeping. So that's a pretty good chunk of time. It's the time when our body is restoring itself. It's when it's healing. If you think about, you're going all day long and you're working hard, you need between 7 to 8 hours of sleep to actually have your body start to restore itself, to heal from the day, to fight viruses. All that stuff is going on while you're sleeping, and so it's super important to have a solid sleep schedule. I know that's really difficult. There's so many times of our lives, a lot of different seasons where we get very little sleep, and God provides and He allows us that. Those are seasons, but in general, we're talking, adults should strive to get between 7 hours of sleep if you can. Kids definitely need a little bit more, between 8 and all the way up to hours. But as adults, that's where we sacrifice our time, is in sleep. We want to stay up late, we want to get things done, and but then we suffer in the morning and we kind of wonder why. So I think it's a good way to prioritize, just get the 7 to 8 hours to start with.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking of a funny bit. I don't know what comedian it is that put it out there, but this idea of night guy, right? When we are living life in the evening time, we might think we might get pretty excited to be night guy, and it might have us carry on a little bit further into the evening maybe than what we were planning. Maybe we had a disciplined time, we wanted to go to sleep, but we were just feeling so good we stay up, and then in the morning we pay for it and we're saying, hey, that night guy, he got me again, right? And so I'm not talking about in any inappropriate way. Certainly there's all kinds of ways that people can go wrong with drunkenness and all that. I'm just talking about even just staying up late. It hurts what time we're going to get up in the morning. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
In the New Testament's first letter of St. John, chapter 5, verses 14 and 15, we read, "And we have this confidence in Him, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us in regard to whatever we ask, we know that what we have asked Him for is ours." It's incredible to realize how much God loves us, what He has promised us, and what He'll give us through our trust in Him. Have you prayed for the Station of the Cross today? We would be grateful if you would remember us each day in your prayers, whether it's the Most Holy Rosary of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, the Liturgy of the Hours, the Most Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, or any other prayers you pray throughout the day. Please also pray for the intentions of your fellow Catholic radio listeners. It's so important for us to remember to keep one another in prayer.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
I have no clue what my future looks like. I know who my future is, and it lies in the hands of Christ. I'm not worried about where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do. My life, I want it to be His, and there's such a freedom in that. I never, ever thought that I would find freedom in a laid down, surrendered life to Christ.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Are you ready to take on the world of flesh and the devil with just the facts? This is Jesse Romero, host of Jesus 911, heard weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined each day by a variety of co-hosts like Ruben Nava, Paul Clay, Dan Schneider, and my amazing wife, Anita Romero. We tackle Catholic devotions, spiritual warfare, family life, saving America, and everything in between. Join us each weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific for Jesus 911. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here. Wholeness and Healing Monday, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, body and soul. Talking today about the topic, the discipline of sleep. Do you have any questions or comments on this? Anything you want to share regarding the discipline of sleep? 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. We did get an email that came in from our survey from Donna in North Reading, Massachusetts. How important do you think sleep is to your well-being and to your life as a disciple of Christ? She says, very. How much sleep do you get each night on average? She says about 6 hours. She says as part of the bedtime routine, she finds that I think it's helpful to go to bed for her around 10 and 11. So having a clear time that she's targeting for bedtime. And then any further questions on the discipline of sleep, she's wondering about how to stay asleep. So Becky, any comments or anything further for Donna about, I guess specifically, that 6 hours on average? That seems to be pretty low. So there's that, but then there's also, she's on target and saying, hey, there's a time I'm looking to go to sleep each night. So I find that to be helpful, but then also maybe having trouble staying asleep. How do I stay asleep? Any thoughts for Donna?
Right. So the studies say the most beneficial hours of sleep are between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., though most adults miss half of this. So if we are not, asleep between that time, our body's not being restored, and therefore, by 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., you're up and your body's kind of confused. So different things that can cause us to struggle to get to sleep or stay asleep would be certain food intolerances, imbalanced hormones for women, especially increase in estrogen, too much caffeine. Definitely want to stop your caffeine intake at 1 p.m. as it can stay in your system for many hours after that. Avoiding alcohol. And, another big thing, we hear about this is a lot of people take the melatonin supplements. And the issue with that is that once you start taking them, your body thinks you don't need it anymore. And so therefore it stops producing it. So, I would definitely say, try to avoid the supplements and try some natural ways to stay asleep or even to get to sleep first. And that's kind of, increasing the melatonin, which with any light in your room is going to decrease melatonin. So try to keep the room dark and try to keep it cool. And then different things you can have before bed that increases melatonin would be, tart cherry juice, pistachios, good, mushrooms, oats, goji berries, and bananas. Bananas are really good too if you have like cramps through the night. There's so many things you can do that, and you don't know what your trigger can be. So many people have sleep issues, cortisol issues. Yeah, I don't know how much I should say about it, but I definitely can relate.
Sure. Yeah. Any other thoughts out there that you might have? Anything you want to add? Anything you want to ask? 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Let me just ask for a moment about just this sense of fidelity, right? When it comes to sleep, what do the scriptures say, right? What do the saints say? What does a life of holiness speak to us on this? I think sometimes we can think, I'm being called to do a lot in my vocation. It's a lot of work, and the good work that God is calling me to do deserves my attention, and I'm just not going to be able to sleep very much, right? That can be valid, perhaps for a season, maybe even for a long season, possibly. We certainly see it in the life of the scriptures that there are times where Jesus is telling those closest to him, the apostles, to stay awake, right? Think of the Garden of Gethsemane. That's a pretty short season. That's one night where he's saying, keep watch with me. And they are drowsy and they refuse to do it. They don't even ask for it. They won't even ask for his help. And they just are willing to fall into just going to sleep. There may be nights where our Lord calls us, keep watch with me, right? It's probably going to be rather unusual for most of us to get that call, but sometimes the Lord might lay that before us. Keep watch with me tonight, some extra prayer. I want you to stay up and pray a little bit more. Probably not going to call us to say, hey, I want you to stay up later and watch more TV, right? That's probably not going to be a call from God. But in general, I do think that this scripture is very helpful to us. It's Psalm 127. and in the Dewey Rames Psalm 126, I believe. So 127, in most translations, it says this. It says, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Now, other translations will say he gives all of this to his beloved in their sleep. So two kind of different meanings there, but basically the idea is to say this: the Lord wants you to have the proper rest and the proper sleep, and that's a blessing. And he wants to give you that, and he wants to work even while you're sleeping. And you need to strive to be faithful to what he's calling you to do and not think so much depends on you more than it actually does depend on you. So I think it's important for real go-getters, I think, to pray with this and even ponder and say, okay, I know a lot's being asked of me and I've been skimping on sleep, and maybe it's not that sustainable, and I'm struggling to function, and I'm being short with people, and I'm struggling to live virtuously because I'm on edge here. Maybe I better think about the Lord wanting to help me in some way to be able to do this even with the proper amount of sleep, and then to trust in him and go forward in that a while and try to set things up accordingly. Something to ponder. But I do want to say one last thing on this. In terms of sometimes where the Lord's going to call us to not have as much sleep, I just think of an example of a mom up in the middle of the night nursing her child, and what a beautiful picture of fidelity that is. Sacrificial love. She is sacrificing sleep, usually not a lot of fun, pretty painful. And yet, when it's done out of love, and even when it doesn't feel good at all, even when you're saying, I'm doing this out of love and the will, and it still feels really painful, what a beautiful sacrifice. What a beautiful action of fidelity to be doing what that mom in that image is doing. And so there's going to be times like that, right, where we are going to have to sleep less to do something that the Lord is calling us to. And in those situations, yeah, we've just got to be faithful and offer it up, offer the pain up, take up the cross in those moments. But generally speaking, it seems to me that our Lord wants to bless us with a good, healthy, restful sleep from night to night. And other than that, there's going to be exceptions. And Jesus does like to get up early. He shows us that in the scriptures. But I think the thing is that that means going to bed earlier. And that's the hard part that a lot of people maybe don't have the discipline to really take action on. Becky, your thoughts?
Yeah, that I think you're so right. I think that example of the mom up with their newborn baby, or nursing baby, I've been so blessed to be able to do that with our kids, and God provides. Sometimes I would get up in the morning and think, I have no idea how I'm functioning right now, but somehow I am, and I'm able to, and I feel okay. And there are seasons where He will provide for you. But like you said, it's when we're up staying late watching TV and surfing on the internet and all that. I think that we want to really work on that, the virtue part as well. And that will in turn help our physical bodies to sleep better. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that, all that you said.
All right, phone lines are open. The discipline of sleep. What are your thoughts? Any questions? 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. What else regarding, I guess I'm thinking about sort of the ideal routine, the ideal bedtime routine, that, you could speak to that, but maybe more specifically just to kind of get into the nitty gritty on it. What about food? What about eating right before you go to bed? Is there a certain time that is a good general rule to follow, a certain amount of time before bedtime that we want to stop eating? Are there certain foods we ought to avoid if we want to get to sleep and sleep well? Anything regarding that sort of aspect of the routine?
Yes, I would just say, stop eating. Studies say, 4 hours before bed, but if you're going to have a snack later, avoid processed foods, avoid processed sugars. They can spike your insulin and lead to inflammation, and, go with high protein and, some fruit or some nuts, things like that. things like very practical things that have helped me, staying hydrated, like I said, avoiding the caffeine. And this I thought was interesting and super helpful, is to get outside in the morning sun, especially sunrise. The daytime sun can be hard on the eyes, but you don't obviously want to be looking directly at the sun. But getting 30 minutes of morning sunlight each day has shown to increase greatly your melatonin, which is going to help you sleep better at night. So just, take off your glasses. If you have glasses, let the sun kind of go in, because we're able to absorb melatonin also through our eyes, which, it's made in the brain, but also we can absorb it, through something like the sun in our eyes, which is super cool. So, take off your sunglasses and just get outside, take a nice walk in the morning. Super helpful. Different things like, what we do is we avoid having cell phones in our bedroom, plugging things in our bedroom. If we put it on airplane mode, but if you need people to contact you, they can't call you if it's on airplane mode. So you can just keep it in the other room. A lot of studies have come out that artificial light and electronics really inhibit melatonin, which is going to make it really hard to get to sleep and to stay asleep. So we kind of avoid that, and I really do feel like it helps. And then, like you said, just have a really consistent wake up cycle and go to bed cycle. Your body will start to get used to it, and that will just be the norm. And as long as you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Also, something practical that I use a lot is magnesium, which is a key element to help your body stay relaxed and to help you get good sleep. And so just a magnesium lotion that we use is from Earthly. It's just a natural company, and they have good values. And a nighttime lotion called Good Night Lotion. I even use it on the kids. It's super helpful. It gets your magnesium in, and you just rub it on your bellies. It has a lot more health benefits than just sleeping, but if you're really struggling with falling asleep and staying asleep, that has been really helpful for me personally. So just share that.
Yeah, it's sometimes difficult to kind of navigate all the studies of things, because they kind of come and go. Sometimes something's good, and then we hear it's bad, then we hear it's good again, stuff like that. But I think we can kind of learn from experience as well. So you can kind of hear what the latest study is, fine, but then also you try good things and see, okay, is this working for me? Is it not? And one of those things that people have tried for many years, I think, which studies have now recently come out and given us some more information on, this is interesting, to drink alcohol right before bed. Now, I'm not talking about drunkenness. Once again, if you're falling into drunkenness, you want to repent of that, get to confession, do your best to just reject that and not live that way any longer by God's grace. But in terms of just having maybe a drink before bedtime, people think that's going to make them sleep better. And oftentimes they might even say, in my experience, that does make me sleep better. It might help you to fall asleep, but you're not getting into those deeper sleep cycles. So you're not getting that really, that restoration that sleep is meant to give you, that deep restoration. So alcohol might seem like it's working to get you to sleep, but you might wake up in the middle of the night if you maybe had a drink before bed, or you might just never really get that deep restoration that you're after. We can talk more about it when we get back. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Jim Havens, co-founder of the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood. Some truths are self-evident, some rights are unalienable. It is a scientific fact that life begins at conception fertilization. It is a foundational moral truth that we ought not murder innocent human beings. Every human being is a human person with a right to life and the equal protection of law according to the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yet we have an ongoing daily mass murder of our little preborn brothers and sisters. It's time for all men and women of goodwill to rise up together in the public square and say no more. Come join us in Albany, New York on Saturday, June 3rd. Men, let's go first and gather at 9 a.m. for the Men's March. Women, we need you to join us at 10:45 a.m. for the Rally for Personhood outside of the New York State Capitol. We'll have some great speakers along with terrific opportunities for formation and fellowship before and after. Go to themensmarch.com for all the details. See you in Albany.
You can listen to any of our network-produced programs at your convenience, wherever you enjoy podcasts. Hear a powerful sermon you need to share with a loved one? Maybe there's a guest or teaching segment that deserves another listen. You can find all of our shows on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, our website, and the free iCatholic Radio app. Be uplifted in your faith. Listen today at thestationofthecross.com or on your favorite podcasting platform.
Each weekday from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern, the Station of the Cross brings you Mother Miriam Live.
Mother Miriam, you open my eyes. You are the light in this dark and evil world.
I absolutely love you, and I love your uncompromising Catholic heart.
Tune in from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern for Mother Miriam Live on the Station of the Cross and our free iCatholic Radio mobile app. You can also watch the video stream every day on Facebook or on YouTube.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here. Wholeness and Healing Monday, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, body and soul. Talking about the discipline of sleep today. Any questions or comments? 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Becky, before the break, talking a little bit about just having maybe a lot of people say, hey, a glass of wine before you go to bed. And then it seems like that might help them to get to sleep, but then not getting really that deep sleep that they're after. They might wake up and not have felt that rested. Actually, that might be an experience that you resonate with if you're listening. Or maybe you have the opposite experience. You have a glass of wine and you actually seem like when you wake up in the morning you had a deep restful sleep. Maybe that's your experience. If it is, let us know. But the study recently that I heard reported on saying that it actually seems like it's helping us with our sleep, but actually it's hurting it. Also, sleep medications functioning in a similar way. Seems like it's helping us with our sleep, but actually not. So these things are to be avoided. They actually hurt our sleep ability. Becky, anything that you want to add on this in terms of alcohol or even sleep medications trying to help us to get to sleep and to stay asleep?
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely say alcohol is not the way to go. Even in my experience, even just a glass of wine, sometimes I'll be up in the middle of the night. A lot of people report, waking up, you're super dehydrated, you can have heart palpitations, you can just feel gross. So even just from one drink, I've heard many people even say that alcohol is like super toxic to your body. I know a lot of people wouldn't want to hear that, and I'm not saying to ward off alcohol, but you have to, be careful with alcohol. And so I think the best time to consume would be probably during the day when it's not really. Same with coffee. Keep it not like early in the morning, but alcohol during the day, I think would be ideal. And I forgot the last question you said.
Sleep medications.
Oh, yeah. So I feel like we're bombarded all the time with sleep medications. We don't watch a lot of TV, but when we do, there are always commercials for sleep medications. And if you listen in, the side effects are crazy. I would definitely not want to trade that. I would probably rather not sleep, but I know for some people they feel it's necessary. But I feel like the most important thing would be to get to the root of the cause of your sleeplessness. Now, God doesn't want you, having no sleep ever. He wants you to find a way to be able to rest. And so there's a lot of great ways to kind of figure out what is going on if you're not sleeping or if you can't stay asleep. But definitely supplementing with medication is not going to get to the root, and it's never going to fix it. So, things even like I said earlier, issues with food intolerances can be a huge issue when it comes to sleep. So yeah, I would start with more of a natural way to do that before using any kind of drug, even something, as harmless as melatonin, which a lot of sleep experts are now saying, it's not going to help solve your problem. It actually could make it worse. So.
Yeah. And, just to also say that, if we want to sleep well, there are deeper issues at play also interiorly. That number one, of course, we want to be living in a state of grace, right? People, maybe you're not going to find this in a secular conversation about sleep, but this is going to help us to have an innocent conscience, right? To be free of all mortal sin, even venial sin as much as possible, have a purity of heart and mind and soul. That's going to help us. That's going to give us that peacefulness interiorly. That's going to help us to live a greater exterior peacefulness as well in our bodies. And so all of this goes together. We want to be in a state of grace. So if you're in mortal sin, obviously get to confession, get into that state of grace. That's going to be helpful to you on every level, especially the most important level, which is your eternal soul. And so that's vital. And also when it comes to, I think, sleeping well, one thing that I have learned as well, if we're being faithful to what we're being called to throughout the day, if we're really not cutting corners and we're not falling for the distractions that are trying to tempt us and assault us all the time, whether from the latest marketing and advertising or some sort of temptations from the devil, whatever they are, if we can avoid those things and if we can stay committed to the things that we are called to do, those good things, the responsibilities of our vocation and the good work that we're called to throughout the day, if we do that well, it's not going to be easy, right? There are going to be times where it's easier than others for sure, but there's always going to be some element of sacrifice throughout the day, of pain in doing the good that we're called to throughout the day, but we're doing it out of love and by God's grace. And if you do that well, if we can work hard by God's grace to do that well, you're going to be tired at the end of the day, and you're going to be tired in a way that is of the Lord. And my experience is, as soon as you hit the pillow, it's not going to take long to fall right to sleep and to have a pretty good deep sleep, unless the Lord has something for you and he wakes you up for it. But my sense is, if we dive in faithfully throughout the day, that's going to help us also in our ability to have a holy tiredness and to be able to sleep well. Becky, any thoughts?
Yes, I think God gave you a gift to fall asleep anywhere. I don't necessarily have that same gift, but I wish I did. I can't tell you how many nights I've stayed up with anxiety or, worried about this. And clearly, God tells us, do not worry, no anxiety. And that took a lot of work for me to really work through my own issues and find ways to, lower my anxiety until it became a lot more manageable. And, sleep suffered the most because at night you're alone, you're quiet, you're thinking about everything, you're worried about things. And it's a great time to focus in on prayer. You may have already said your rosaries, but I can't tell you how many times I've woken up and I'm like, I'll just say a chaplet or I'll just say a rosary, and you might get down a few beads and then you're out. And God rewards you for turning to Him. I'm not turning to my phone, or that could be tempting to, I'll just put on a movie or see what's going on my phone or Instagram or something. But turning to Him and be like, help me, and maybe somebody needs this Hail Mary. Maybe somebody needs this decade of the Rosary. And then allowing Him to just, put you back to sleep. That's been super helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. Phone lines are open. You can give us a call if you have any comment or question on this. The discipline of sleep, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Sue Ellen in Cheektowaga, New York, answered our survey today. She said, look, this is very important. It's an important part of how we take care of our bodies. The temple of the Holy Spirit sleeps about 7 hours on average each night. And she finds what's helpful to her regular bedtime routine is the nightly examine prayer and praying a decade of the Rosary with her husband. She also says further that as a church, we have to stop idolizing busyness. People who are too busy don't sleep well. Poorly rested people have a harder time with virtue. Thank you for that email, Sue Ellen. Becky, your thoughts on Sue Ellen's comments here?
Yeah, I totally agree. You definitely need to. I love that she does the examine prayer and a decade of the Rosary. I think that we've even for our kids, we've settled into a bit of a routine, quiet reading, and you read the kids' stories a lot, and we pray the Rosary, and they need that. They need that guidance, and we kind of need that too. And if they can instill that as even kids, they can learn to incorporate those things as they get older. And I think that's been really helpful for them to kind of just wind down. I think we all need that. And so, yeah, definitely some good ideas there.
Yeah, that's funny. That sort of wind down time that we can see so fruitful in the lives of these little people, these children, and yet we somehow maybe don't think we need that. Or when we get older, there's just no wind down time. You just just go from whatever you're doing. And again, that can be okay if it's faithful. If you're doing something that is exactly what the Lord is asking of you, and then the next thing is, okay, go to sleep. Hey, if that's what the Lord's calling you to, then that's going to be good. But oftentimes, generally speaking, we need to have some sort of a bedtime routine that's going to help us, and that is what the Lord is asking of us. So maybe it's read a little bit of scripture right before we go to bed. Certainly, the electronics seem to be the thing that we want to try to avoid. Becky, how many hours before bed did you say you want to avoid the electronics?
Really, they say, sundown, as soon as the sun goes down. Let me just read you this really quick, because I find this really helpful from an article I picked up earlier. So it says, for much of human history, we had sunlight during the day and no light or only orange hues from the moon, stars, or a campfire at night. Now we have artificial light in various shades and spectrums, and our bodies respond to these differently. Even ambient light in a normal house is 12 to 30 times brighter than natural moonlight and in much different colors. At night, in darkness, our pineal glands produce melatonin, which is vital for regulating our cortisol, hormones, and body temperature. Even small amounts of artificial light can interrupt this process, and this partially explains why so many of us have disrupted cortisol patterns. So I think they're onto something. I think we have so many artificial lights, even street lights, penetrating our homes and our bedrooms. And I always slept with lights on. I don't love sleeping in the dark, but I realize that it does help tremendously, in our sleep patterns. So found that interesting.
Yeah, very interesting when you think that this is not natural to us, so much of the technologies we have today, not to say that they're inherently bad, but that are we really made for them? Was man really made to have be surrounded and be soaking in Wi-Fi 24/7 and to be having just the staring at the TV right before you go to bed and all of these things? Is that really the life that we were made for? Right. So it raises an important question that we ought to think about. We have an anonymous listener who wrote this into us, saying that they think sleep is important to your well-being, life as a disciple of Christ, on a scale of 1 to 10 at 10, but they're only getting on average about 4 hours at best, they say. They kind of are in and out as far as what they have found as far as a regular bedtime routine, so that might be part of the difficulty there. But also they comment, I definitely notice no sleep at all around full moons. So that's probably an odd thing. I'm not really sure. Certainly the moon affects various things, the tides and whatever else. There is a science around that. Becky, is there anything to this, having trouble sleeping around full moons?
Yeah, strangely enough, it has been linked to people having parasites. So I know that sounds gross, but 70% of us have parasites. Some are noticeable, some are not. And the reason for this, where it would come out during a full moon, is because during the full moon we produce less melatonin and more serotonin, which parasites attach to. So our melatonin will decrease with more light. So if you have a full moon, the light's coming into your room, melatonin drops, serotonin increases, and the parasites attach to that. And parasites are gross, and they do different things in your body and keep you awake, and they're not supposed to be in there. I mean, you think about for our animals, we like deworm and give them all these medications for parasites. Humans are kind of the same way. I mean, for years and years, if you kind of go back and look into this, which was super interesting, people would do these natural parasite cleanses once a year or twice a year, just to kind of rid their body of them and be done with it. And we've kind of fallen away from that, and we don't even realize that we can have it. We hear it and we think, oh, that's so disgusting. But we did a parasite cleanse, and I thought it was actually super helpful after we had COVID. A lot of times parasites will attach to a virus, and especially COVID. They were saying, parasites are attaching to COVID, and I had terrible stomach issues with COVID, and it was just a disaster. But we ended up doing this parasite cleanse, even the kids and myself, and it's really good to do, especially after you've been sick with any kind of virus. And there's really gentle and easy ways to do it, and it's not weird or disgusting. It's just cleaning your body and giving your gut a makeover. And you do it for about 2 weeks, and it helped tremendously for me personally. So there are ways to kind of naturally do that. God leads us to find natural ways, and I believe that it actually works. So parasites in the full moon, it's a thing.
Yeah, there are some things that I know little to nothing about, even though I might be taking what my wife Becky there is giving me, as she just talked about. I trust her on a lot of things, because I still don't understand what she was just talking about there. I think we've got a further conversation to be had later on, I guess, if I want to learn more about parasites, which I guess I've got to face it. If it's an important thing, I better learn more about it. But if you have any questions on this or anything else related to the discipline of sleep, that's what we're doing today. We'll give out the number again as soon as we get back. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. Justice Alito of the U.S. Supreme Court has ordered plaintiffs in Alliance Hippocratic versus FDA to respond by Tuesday to the High Court with its arguments in their case. Until Wednesday, lower court rulings have been put on hold. On Good Friday, the federal district court ruling that sought to set aside FDA approval of chemical abortion was itself without precedence. No judge had ever set aside executive branch orders from the Food and Drug Administration. And both Justice Alito and Justice Kavanaugh concurred in Dobbs v. Jackson last June that courts are, unlike legislatures, unable to set aside rulings specifically on abortion. The Dobbs ruling is looming large in Florida, where a heartbeat abortion ban has been passed and signed by Governor Ron DeSantis. Yet enactment is waiting on Florida Supreme Court action on an earlier 15-week abortion ban. Dobbs v. Jackson specifically points to situations like this where states' legislatures implement abortion law. This is Life News Radio. In other headlines, 7 years ago, a hospital in northwestern England noticed statistical anomalies that pointed to allegations of one neonatal nurse committing eugenic murders. Lucy Letby is now on trial for murder. Contrasting state actions show Kansas Governor Laura Kelly vetoing abortion survivor protections. That veto is likely to be reversed by legislators. And Colorado is embracing unlimited abortion in a new law. Meanwhile, Texas is likely to offer nearly $250 million in pregnancy support funding. California legislation wants to teach 13-year-olds how to have an abortion, but North Dakota is preparing to show every student a video accurately showing fetal development by live action. It's called Baby Olivia. Life News Radio depends on your support of this radio station. Without this station, there is silence. There may be no voice on the life issue. This has been Life News Radio.
Back to the Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here, talking about the discipline of sleep today, regarding the wholeness and healing that we all desire. We're fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person here, body and soul. That's why we're talking about the discipline of sleep today. If you have a question or comment, last segment, time to get it in, 1-877-511-5483, 1-877-511-5483. Might be easier maybe to email on this topic or answer the survey on this topic. Got a bunch of responses from the survey on it today. Thank you for all who responded to that. Not able to get to everybody, but want to get to this one. This is another anonymous listener here who writes this: sleep is extremely important. God emphasizes rest as a commandment. Keep holy the Sabbath and the rest there for sure. Says that about 8 hours on average per night they're able to get for sleep. So that's pretty awesome. Well done. And then they say this about the bedtime routine. I think this is quite helpful. The listener says, home is picked up, clothes laid out for the morning, set clock for early alarm, quiet through prayer and reading, windows open if nice weather. This sounds like someone who's got a pretty solid routine down, and it sounds like a pretty great discipline. And remember, with these disciplines, they're not easy to cultivate at first. That might sound like it's pretty easy to cultivate, but you don't feel like doing it. You might write it down, feel like doing it when you write it down. Then it comes time to actually get it done, and you might not feel like having quiet prayer and reading at that time. Do you have the discipline to do it anyway until you do it day in and day out, until it becomes something that is quite easy and natural and very fruitful? That's what it takes to cultivate discipline. This listener also writes, daily routine and flexibility set up a peaceful night. So another great comment there, having the daily routine, but also with some flexibility, not too committed in a way where you're not allowing some things to go a little bit differently. If God has something else in mind, we're flexible to be able to roll with it and to be faithful, whatever it might be. So great comments there from the anonymous listener. And I want to bring this in real quick too. This is another great example of the discipline of sleep and discipline in general in cultivating good habits. We see it in various religious orders. So with a lot of these orders, you can find out what their schedule is by going to their websites. And it's kind of interesting to look at. What is your rule of life? If you're a lay person, right? You don't have to have as strict a rule of life as someone who's committing themselves to a religious community. But maybe you do. Maybe actually that would be good for you. Have you ever thought of it? Have you ever considered it? Well, let's just look at a couple of the religious orders and see what they're doing for sleep. This is the Dominican nuns in Alabama. So they're getting up at 5 a.m. for Angelus and Marian consecration every morning. They're going to sleep at 10 p.m. So that's about 7 hours there. We've got Christ the King Abbey, a monastery of traditional Benedictine monks. They're getting up at 4 a.m. I don't have any sort of indication of what time they're going to sleep here, but getting up at 4 a.m. So different religious orders are going to slice this different ways. Here is the Carmelite Monastery in Indiana. They're getting up at 5:30 a.m., going to sleep at 11 p.m. So that's only about 6.5 hours daily. And then we've got the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration, and they are getting up, it says 6 a.m. meditation, and then it says the last thing in the evening is a 9 p.m. grand silence. So that's about 9 hours, but it seems like they're not necessarily going right to bed or necessarily not getting up right at that meditation, probably a little bit earlier. So there's some flexibility in this schedule, a pretty nice one. I like this idea of the grand silence that a lot of religious orders do practice. We've done this with mixed reviews with our own children in our own home. It's time for the great silence, we'll say. And when we first started doing this, I think the kids were pretty into it. But now maybe we need to try to push that and get that idea back out there, get them excited about it once more, because you're trying to discipline too much talking before bed as they're in their room, sharing rooms with one another. So this idea of this grand silence, this great silence that we're entering into at a certain time, just like the religious orders do, that's kind of a fun and maybe fruitful way to go about it. But I want to throw this question at you, Becky. I know there's a lot to respond to there, but I want to put this at you because this is a very practical thing, and that is with married couples. So you're striving to do your work all day. You're trying to do all your responsibilities for your vocation all day. It seems like there's so much. When is the time with the spouse? Well, you come together at night, but the children aren't, they're going to bed early, and maybe you got a little bit of time when the children go to bed before you're trying to go to bed, but you also want to get enough sleep to get up early and get it all going again. And so how does a married couple build this in, right? So you're not turning on the electronics. What we seem to need is this need for good recreation, this good leisure together as married couples in the evening that doesn't go to the electronics. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's tricky. I know we've tried many different things to find ways to be good at this. I think the one thing we have kind of got down is having all the kids go up to bed at 8. I know a lot of people who are like, yeah, my kids go to bed at 11, and I'm like, when do you ever spend time with your husband? I'm mystified. I would love to know, because I feel like by 7:30, 8 o'clock, we are ready for a break. We go all day long with the kids. We have them home with us all through the day. And of course, we love our kids, but there comes to be a point in the day where they need that separation. They need, that downtime to relax. They do a little quiet reading and then they're off to bed. And then, I think trying to find some meaningful communication, some meaningful, we've tried cards, chess games. We used to play board games. A lot of times we just sit down and watch a show if it's a good show that we're into. Just talking sometimes, having a snack and talking. I don't know. I think this is, individually per person, per marriage, coming together and see what works. I think it's so important to do date nights. And I know you can't always leave the house. I know it's very hard for us to leave the house. But, even a lunch date or something like that, being more creative. I know we're in the midst of this season right now. So those are just some of the things I'm thinking about out loud.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I wanted to get some tips from you. So thanks for sharing that. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. Only got a couple minutes to go, but want to sneak it in. Karen in Buffalo, New York, thank you for calling. What is your comment or question today?
Okay, my question is this. My daughter has had seasonal allergies, which right now are keeping her up all night. I mean, she started in 7th grade. She's a grad student in college now, and the month of April is terrible for her. A couple questions I had. One is, what do you think of neti pots? And also, can you give us a good brand name for a parasite cleanse for her?
All right. Thank you for the call, Karen. Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, the neti pots are good. I know even the sinus rinses are really good too. That can really clear you out. I would say when we were in Nashville for a point of time, I had really bad seasonal allergies and I was really struggling to get rid of them. And something I did, and I was really strict about it because I was interfering, every day with my life, was taking about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, the raw kind, and diluting it in some water and having just a little glass like 2 to 3 times a day spread throughout the day. Within 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, my allergies were significantly better. I also know that raw honey, local raw honey, can really help with the allergens. So that was the first part of the question. Can you remind me, Jim, of the second part?
The brand for the parasite cleanse.
Oh, the parasite cleanse. Okay. We used Earthly gut oil. There's a ton of brands out there. You have to be very, very aware of what you're getting because a lot of the brands, they're just trying to make money. So Earthly has a gut one. I mean, you feel free to send me an email. I'd be happy to email you or send my husband an email. I'd be happy to email you exactly what we used and how we used it. So
sure,
try to be brief, but I don't want to give brand names
very
out.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, you can find Becky at safehavensmama.com. I think her email is up there. If you want my email, jimh@thestationofthecross.com. Also on Becky's website, that Toxin-Free in 12 Months book, as well as the boycott list over 300 pro-abortion companies. And I'll just say, the sinus rinse used to save me. I used to have chronic sinus infections, maybe because of diet or living up north. I don't know what it was, but the sinus rinse saved me. God bless you.